Gonna do my best not to have a stroke live on the air today.
Oh, no.
Okay, Ron.
Oh, no.
Console Crusade Podcast, where we talk about consoles and we talk about the Crusade. Trebuchets, my name is EJ Olson. Today, joining me today is Nick Durheim, as per usual. And again,
Hello.
Chris Gilly-Forrer. Welcome to the show, bud.
Oh, thanks. I'm super excited to be back on a podcast I do not listen to.
God. We're going to change that yet.
Yeah, we'll never have you on again.
Well, it's funny. It feels like it's been a long time since we talked, Chris, but you were only on an episode ago.
God, I guess so. Yeah, it was like, that was June, I think.
Was it even that late? I thought it was even sooner, but yeah, it's
That was after Last of Us, and that came out June, right?
I thought it came out in April. Last of Us?
No, it got delayed. Yeah, didn't it get delayed super hard?
Maybe. I don't remember. This year has melted my brain. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it must have been a week after release, I think, because, yeah, it was end of June. Came out June 19th.
And now it's September 25th, and I don't know what's happening in the world anymore. But anyway, we wanted to get here to talk about Mario, and we've all been playing the new Mario collection, and we're going to do that a little bit later in the podcast. But I got to start this pod by saying the last podcast that got released was so outdated at several points. On several occasions, it was like, oh shit, we missed a really big event. Let's record an addendum. And then the day we recorded the addendum, the next day, Microsoft announces their Bethesda acquisition, and it was instantly outdated. So we released a podcast that just, some of the shit we say in it just feels probably like months ago at this point. So we got to start off by talking about Microsoft's $7.5 billion acquisition of ZeniMax, which is the parent company to Bethesda, among other companies. So give me a little bit of information here.
Well, it's definitely Microsoft is unfurling their uber schlong of money. Nobody else in the video game business can compete with the kind of money that Microsoft has, except maybe Apple or Amazon, but they're hardly even in it. We'll talk about that later. But I mean, just by buying ZeniMax, they got what, like 8 studios? They added like another half to their first party portfolio, if you count all those companies as being first party, which they pretty much are. And so now they're up to 23 studios, and they got the likes of Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Wolfenstein, all the talented developers and like that work in Arcane. And then they got their first Japanese studio, which that was my first thought. I was like, man, they really spent $7.5 billion just to finally get a Japanese studio. That was like my own like personal little thought. Get some Shinji Mikami action.
The Xbox is finally going to have more than exactly 2 JRPGs. Maybe.
No, they're not going to get JRPGs. They're going to get like weird horror games. That's what was it? Tequila Works? I think that's the name. Tango. I always get these T studios mixed up. I think it's Tango. But yeah, they do the Evil Within series, and they're making that Ghostwire Tokyo game that's going to be a PS5 exclusive for, 6 months or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, Microsoft is totally flexing, and it shows that they're dedicated to making video games still. They're not just like shitting out hardware because they can and working on Game Pass. Like, they want to make the video games too that makes those consoles and services appealing. And Sony has clearly won this generation, maybe by having the cheaper console, maybe by having better first party games, but Microsoft does not want to have either of those options to be the reason next generation.
So, Nick, you and I have talked a lot in the last 4-hour freaking podcast we did about Xbox, Microsoft Games Pass, and the whole package. But Chris, is this something, is even before the acquisition, was Game Pass something that appealed to you? And what does this mean for that as someone who was not a part of the Xbox family this last generation? Is this appealing to you?
The more stuff that I learned about it, the more that information was released, and then especially after this acquisition, it did move the needle for me enough that I was actively looking into what would it mean to actually own one of these consoles. I decided not to because, I mean, frankly, I've got enough stuff to play that Games Pass is just going to languish. But the whole Xbox All Access, no one no one's ever done anything like that, at least not from the studio standpoint, right? Like saying, yeah, you can come get a console for $0 down, pay 25 or 35 bucks a month, depending on what model you get, and have Games Pass, and in 2 years you accrue no interest, the console is yours, and then you just have to do your Games Pass subscription. Like, that is incredible, especially in the post-corona economy. A lot of the parents of, well, I mean, people our age, gamers, period, but also like parents looking to buy a new console for their kids, like, they're not going to shell out, they don't have $500 to shell out on a PlayStation 5 that they may or may not be able to get, but they could do Xbox All Access. Their kids can have Games Pass to stream. They don't have to buy them physical games. They can play Games Pass for months upon months upon months and never get through the whole catalog. Like, that to me felt like a body blow to Sony. And then now they've got some really killer first party IPs. Like, Elder Scrolls 6 is not coming to PS5. There's not a fucking chance in the world that game's coming to PS5.
You know, that there has been a lot of speculation and a lot of hand-wringing. I mean, Xbox or Microsoft came out and they said that, well, we're going to honor our PS5 commitments, but after that, it'll be a game-by-game basis. My stance on it is that they did not just spend $7.5 billion with a B dollars to not sell their games. And if Sony sells 100 million consoles over the next 7 years, you bet your ass you're getting all those fucking games. Because, like Nick said, they don't care. They have clearly diverted from Sony, and they don't care about selling units and creating this exclusive ecosystem. They don't care where you play it. They just want you to give them your money for their software. And the more devices that's available on, I mean, Minecraft is everywhere, right? So, like, why would they make that a Microsoft exclusive? Is that going to sell more Xboxes? They don't give a shit. They can sell it to 10 times as many people.
The more people that have an Xbox is the more likely they're going to have Game Pass, because you can't get Game Pass on a PS5. So they want you to buy it on PC. They want you to buy it on Xbox. And if they can sell you an Xbox, I mean, they wouldn't. If they didn't care if you bought an Xbox, they wouldn't have priced their consoles $500 and $300. They are taking a huge loss on those systems based on the specs that they have.
They wouldn't be giving them away, literally
with the All Access program. Like, and yeah, Chris, to your point, like with All Access, like that is such an easy way to get into the system. And they've done like little experiments with the Xbox One, and I think they started even doing it with the 360, but it was not very widespread. And they're working with the major retailers. They're working with Best Buy, Walmart, Target, GameStop for as long as they exist. And I think that's a huge, easy way to get people to get into their system.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, EJ, to your point with the Elder Scrolls, like, sure, Minecraft is everywhere, but I don't think Minecraft was ever like a system seller. Like, if Minecraft was exclusive, I'm sure it just would be a smaller game. It's like, it's sold hundreds of millions of copies because it is everywhere, because it's ubiquitous, but that's never going to be the case with Skyrim. Like, literally, it's on everything, but it's sold maybe 30 million copies, which is still like a ton.
Yeah.
But it's not Minecraft numbers.
It's not 100 million.
Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, it's not at that kind of point. So I think that's like that's the sweet spot for getting the core gamers who are the console evangelists that are the most annoying on Twitter and are the worst comments on YouTube. You want those people to buy your console because they're the ones that defend your shit. And they're the ones that say, hey, let's all get an Xbox this generation so we can all use voice chat, even though all the games are cross-play and you can just play Call of Duty with your bros no matter where they are. But it still matters. You want to get the same thing that your friends get. And I think pretty much every game that Bethesda makes that isn't like a total trash fire is like a game that fits into the Microsoft economy that they're trying to get people to play for a long time and to play with their friends.
I was telling Chris before the podcast, I don't know enough about the like fiscal implications of how Microsoft is going to make all their money back on this deal. And I know they have their toes dipped in a million things, not just games, the way that like Sony is only a company anymore because of PlayStation's success.
Right.
So I don't know, but for context, like the second largest franchise ever in Star Wars was only acquired 6-7 years ago for $4 billion. And that was a shocking number.
This isn't even the largest video game like studio acquisition. Tencent bought a majority stake in Supercell like 6 years ago for over $8 billion. And that's just a mobile game company. You know, they make Clash of Clans and Clash Royale and like Boom Beach and stuff.
This is serving my point. So thank you for bringing this up. $7.5 billion seems crazy to me. And I don't know enough about how the money works. But to me, I'm like, how do you make that money back with a conventional system selling these games? And obviously Games Pass isn't conventional, but my brain I'm sure it's very possible, but like my brain can't comprehend how like this was fiscally responsible. I understand this is a brilliant business move. This took the video game world by storm. This was like, what a freaking cherry on top of 3 flawless years of acquisitions for Microsoft. And so what I'm worried about when I see this is like, yeah, I'm not worried about games being exclusive. They need to sell games, and they need to make this money back and make this as lucrative as possible. But like, are we gonna see more microtransactions and like weird shady EA shit? Because when you say Tencent bought that mobile company, like those games make money hand over fist because of how accessible they are and the type of in-game economies they have. And that's the kind of thing that like conventional console gamers do not want. And that is, every year there's controversy after controversy with these companies doing shady shit, the Epics and the EAs and whatever. That kind of worries me, that when you see that large of a price tag, you're wondering like, okay, how long before the other shoe drops? How long before Games Pass is $30 a month? How long before every goddamn game we've been playing for 20 years now has insane microtransactions? And it kind of worries me. And I don't know, am I wrong to be worried about that?
I understand where you're coming from, but personally, I don't think so. You're right with the Tencent acquisition of Supercell, that was, that's a mobile game market. That's a mobile game economy. Clearly, they bought that studio because the games they were making a lot of money. I think that kind of purchase is a lot closer to Microsoft buying Mojang and getting Minecraft as being like, okay, we're going to buy this and then we're just going to keep making money off of it. Whereas if you're buying Bethesda and you're buying this huge portfolio of studios and IP, you're going for a more broad sort of appealing to bring people into services. This is a long-term investment. Microsoft, this is a drop in the bucket for expenditure for them because they have $150 billion in the bank and their company is worth $1.5 trillion. $7.5 billion is nothing. It does not matter to them. They wipe their ass with this money. This is more just saying, hey, we're dedicated to games, and this is like us doubling down on video games and having a appealing portfolio of studios. I don't think it's going to affect either Bethesda's. I feel like even Bethesda was in trouble with their previous corporate ownership with ZeniMax and trying to make their video game business make more sense. And I think that's why Microsoft ended up buying them and that they were selling themselves, because they were struggling to make the kind of money that made sense for who previously owned them. But for Microsoft, they make money elsewhere. I mean, they've got the kind of money to buy LinkedIn for like $3 billion or whatever it was. Like, nobody's making money off of buying LinkedIn. Why did they buy Skype? Like, nobody wants that. But Microsoft's like, we just want to have our fingers in everything. And Bethesda is sort of like a similar purchase in that regard, I think.
I wonder, and Chris, I'll toss this to you here, but I wonder if this is like supervillain origin story a la Disney, where it's like the beginning of this entertainment monopoly, and before you know it, Microsoft is going to own every goddamn franchise worth owning based at the rate that they're buying studios. What does the industry look like in 5 years because of this precedent? Am I crazy to even start to sort of extrapolate that?
I don't think that's an unfounded fear. I think it's less that they're trying to monopolize and more that they recognize that regardless of whatever all access services and inexpensive Games Pass they have, and this is what I've been saying basically until this acquisition happened, is I still don't want to own an Xbox because their games aren't good. The games that they have that I want to play, I can play anywhere else. And so having the streaming of Games Pass of games that I would rather play on my Switch if I can is just not appealing to me at all. And so this is a little bit of Microsoft playing Sony's game and saying, fine, fuckers, like, if you want to waive your exclusives and say this is how we're going to keep our massive market share, which at the end of this console generation is still like an enormous disparity between Sony and Microsoft, that they're going to acquire a massive tentpole franchise, and I guarantee it, and you can mock me with it if I'm wrong, here's the soundbite for you. Elder Scrolls 6 will not launch on Xbox Series X and PS5 at the same time if it's on PS5 at all. They're either going to time exclusive it for a year, like Sony does with stuff like Final Fantasy VII Remake, or it's not coming to them at all. And that will sell Xboxes. I will buy an Xbox to play The Elder Scrolls 6. Like, it is one of my favorite franchises, and I know I'm not alone when it comes to console gaming. And in 5 years, to your last question, we're all going to be streaming everything. And so I think at the end of the day, it's going to be everybody's going to have a set-top streaming box. There is not going to be what we think of as consoles anymore. The next generation is going to be streaming services. And it's just going to matter whose games do you have? Whose games do you want to play?
That is interesting because we said that in 2013. That was the hot button item was chatting about this being the last console generation. But we saw that over the course of almost a decade, technology hasn't come far enough to where an all streaming platform is viable. But if you mean streaming services like Games Pass, I still think the console's going to exist. PlayStation's still going to sell a PlayStation 6. Even if all their games are delivered via this service that you pay monthly for. And that is, I think, it's hard to tell because in its infancy, like television streaming was goddamn brilliant. It saved you $100+ a month, and you had this seemingly infinite selection of shit to watch. But as time has gone on and more companies are just getting into the streaming game, suddenly now to get everything you wanted to watch or that you did watch 5 or 10 years ago, you're just paying for cable basically. Now, you know what I mean? So like at what point is it going to be like, all right, I'm going to be paying for every company's goddamn streaming service to play their games, and suddenly now the consumer's getting screwed. This was great for a couple of years, but now it's the value proposition, that scale is completely tipped, and there's nothing we can do about it because we let that beast feed, and now it's out of control. So I don't know. I get pretty pessimistic about things. You guys know this. So I look at it and I want to get caught up in the like, holy shit, Games Pass, like look at what I can get right now. That's amazing. And I'm more just like, this is headed for disaster. But I also recognize that the video game industry is different than a lot of other industries. Like Hollywood is a completely different animal. And like at the end of the day, like people are just trying to make good games. Obviously it trickles down from, the CEOs and all the money dudes at the top. At the end of the day, like I don't think there's going to be any chicanery here like Disney. I think this is probably a good thing in the long run. I hope we never lose physical media. As much as I do like the idea of a streaming platform that lets me download the game, I don't want to be doing none of this Google Stadia stream to my set-top box shit. The whole, your games are going to be streamed to you via the internet, but they're going to be running off of a centralized server. We are so far from that, I think, especially globally, from that being accessible enough to people to be viable that like I don't even want to think about it. As a sucker for physical media, it scares me to think that like we really might be headed, down the Spotify path here.
Would this be a good opportunity to segue to the Luna?
Look at you doing my job for me, Chris. I'm drinking whiskey. You're just doing it for me. I love it.
Well, what you just said. I mean, I think that this is potentially a game changer. So Luna, Amazon has announced that they are going to be doing a Stadia-like streaming service. With games that you can stream from a server without the need for a console. You can do it on any of your Android devices, on any of your Fire accessible devices, your Fire TVs, your Fire Sticks.
Not on Android yet, on iPhone and
not
iPad
on Android
first.
yet? Oh, so
Not on Android yet, because they're doing a web app thing to bypass the whole problem with the iOS App Store.
That's right. The collective response, I think, from the internet so far has been a big eye roll of, okay, well, what makes you think that you can do it any better than Google did? I have to tell you,
right.
I have seen this service in action. And that's why I was so excited to talk about this, because I couldn't, and I wish I could have given you guys the scoop, but I would like my brother to keep his job.
Oh, we got inside scoop from Chris Gilly-Forrer over here. You had to know about this?
I did. Wow. I saw it and had my hands on it for just a little bit at the end of July.
Are we gonna need to cut this out of the pod so that you don't get accosted by Amazon lawyers that you shouldn't have been touching this thing? You might be jeopardizing your brother's job anyway.
No. He had insured me that he has friends and family, that he has family only. He had family only permissions that he could show it to us. He could not show it to my dad because he is a laser safety tech for Oculus, which is a competitor company. So, funny story, during quarantine...
Tell me Facebook and Amazon aren't homies?
They were... What? They were both working from home, and Joey had to work in a separate room of the house from my dad because otherwise they wouldn't let him work at home because they work for competing companies. So anyway, he was like, I can show you this. Destroying families!
Literally.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I was going to say, boy, that sounded, the second it came out of my mouth, I regretted that. Anyway, okay. So, Joey was using an old MacBook, like 3, 4, 5-year-old MacBook on home Wi-Fi on the back deck, not even inside the house. It booted up immediately. He used an old Xbox 360 controller, loaded Metro 2033 in, I don't know, approximately 30, 45 seconds, and was up and playing with no lag, just like that. And it really, I think Amazon's infrastructure could be better set up to do this, to do what Stadia wanted to do, but was not able to do. The fact that they have a partnership with Ubisoft is significant, although I'm skeptical about. So the base channel for the streaming,
Ubisoft plays with everybody. I mean,
right,
the first thing that
exactly.
Stadia was demoing was Assassin's Creed. That's the one that I played on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Was what was that one? Odyssey, I think.
Yeah,
That sounds right.
and it's $6 to start. It's not going to stay that cheap. There's no way in hell it's going to stay that cheap to stream. And the Ubisoft channel is going to be an additional price. You know, they're going to do it subscription style, like they do you on Amazon Prime Video. Oh, get the Stars add-on, get the HBO add-on. You know, get the Ubisoft channel, get the EA channel, or whatever. Right. But if it works better than Stadia, I mean, like, the concept's a good concept. It just was poorly executed by Google. So that's where I'm at.
So I'm curious, like, how poorly executed was Stadia? Like, there was some questionable things maybe in the marketing, but like, again, and I don't mean to discredit your anecdotal experience, like, you might be right, but like, I'm sure there are plenty of people who played Stadia and said, holy shit, I can't believe this is the future. But it's so dependent, I mean, on a case-by-case basis, and again, our infrastructure is so far away from being able to make this a ubiquitous thing. I mean, years and years and years away. I mean, there are parts of the country, I mean, let alone the world, where high-speed internet is not where it needs to be for streaming high HD video, let alone a video game. But like, how far are we away from like being able to play a competitive game with zero or imperceptible lag? Like, it feels like this could be a very cool niche thing, but is not viable to take off in the way that consoles have in the last couple of decades. You know what I mean? I'm curious to like Nick, you played with Stadia and you can kind of tell us how that worked for you, but like, it feels like a fun thing to play with, and maybe there's a niche for it, but I don't see a world where our infrastructure is good enough across the board to like make this take any sort of, you know, dent in the market share. So I don't know, Nick, how did Stadia work for you, and how does this look different?
Personally, and from my perspective, I feel like Stadia's major issues was not the quality of the service. It's just how they monetized and how they, like you said, marketed, and just the fact like they wanted to roll out. I think it would have been so much smarter if they had rolled out to everything simultaneously, but they had this weird staggered rollout where you had to buy a special version of the Chromecast Ultra to do it on TV. Their controller, it only worked with their controller. You couldn't hook up like a Bluetooth controller to the Chromecast initially. It only worked with the Pixel phones, not every Android phone. It doesn't work with iOS at all. I don't think you can even, I think you can do it on desktop now. But it was a very weird staggered release. You had to pay monthly for just the 4K version. So if you had like a free version of Stadia, you could just play they basically launched a Steam competitor in that regard, because you still had to buy all the games. They weren't doing a, you know, pay monthly, get a Netflix of games kind of thing. And Luna's doing that as opposed to what Stadia did. So they're offering a similar product, but the way they're selling it to you is majorly different. And no matter what, you're still going to be tethered to where you live, basically. That gives you a different experience with the quality of the game, the quality of the service. So if you live close to an AWS web server, or if you live close to an Azure server, if you're doing xCloud streaming, or if you live close to a Google whatever server station that they have all their racks filled with the video game consoles that you're playing off of, then you're going to have different experiences for all of those. Whereas people still can say, hey, I can buy a PS4 and it's going to look the same as my buddy's PS4 who lives, you know, across town. Like, it doesn't matter where you live. I think that's the major stumbling block here. And until the FCC gets their shit together, it's not going to be any better in the US in the next 5 years, because they're going to keep putting up roadblocks there. And then, yeah, it's interesting how they're doing the, pay $6 a month and then add different channels, like Chris was saying, with how Amazon Prime Video does that with their different channels for stars. And my mom watches like BritBox and she has her, old lady channels watching Hallmark and stuff. But I think that's a smart way to do it. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that's really beneficial to the user base because they can say, hey, I don't play Ubisoft games, but I like these EA games that I want to play every year. I'll get the new Madden and just play it through my streaming box. Like, I think that's more tenable than what Stadia does, because why would you buy a la carte when you can just, if you're the kind of person who has a fast enough internet connection to play Stadia games, you probably have a beefing ass PC and you can just buy the games anyway. Or you can afford a console. You're paying $100 a month of Comcast to get, a quarter of gigabit and then 10 up. Like, come on. So I think it's just a strange thing with the pricing and how that works out. That who are you selling this to? Who is this for? Is this an entry level kind of market? Because if that's the case, then they do not have a prosumer grade internet.
And especially with Microsoft Games Pass taking off, it honestly, the service doesn't seem dissimilar enough. I mean, it obviously is at its core, and something like Luna could be cheaper than still needing to invest in hardware to play the game on. At the end of the day, like, for something that you're going to play for a decade, is it worth to try and switch to something like this when you could just buy a console for $200 next year? And
well, that's the thing is, like, this. I don't think they're trying to sell you for a long period of time. If they're charging for monthly, like, people can generally jump in. You could pay $6 and try it out for a month. Like, that's not really a huge stumbling block. And just the hardware for the controller, I think they're selling it for $50, and it's like, seems like a decent whatever Pro Controller knockoff. Same with the Stadia controller. So I don't think this is going to revolutionize the way video games are bought and sold and the way people play them. But I think it's an interesting competitor from a space like Amazon has not done really anything with video games besides buying Twitch and like telling a bunch of studios that they can make video games for them and then failing to do so, to the point where they put out an Overwatch knockoff that they took back into early access after selling it and stopped being able to sell it anymore. It's like back in closed beta.
Which game is that?
Can't remember the name. It was like it was literally called like Crusade or something like that. I can't remember what it's called.
I'm trying to think back.
Crucible. That's the one. That's a bad name.
What was Battleborn that launched?
Yeah, that was Gearbox, right?
Was that an Overwatch competitor?
Kinda. It was like before Overwatch, but it was similar hero shooter. I mean, there were a lot of hero shooters that are coming around that time. I think they're just trying to pick up after TF2. So there's like Battleborn. There was the other physics-based one where you could like shoot backwards and like fly through space and stuff. I can't remember the name of that one.
TF2 is like the Meshuggah of video games. Where like TF2 never had any mainstream success. Like it was just like it was a cult thing on PC, but it influenced this entire genre that completely fucking took off.
It was not just a cult thing on PC. It was part of the Orange Box. That shit sold like hotcakes on 360.
I never heard shit about Team Fortress in my entire life, bro.
Everybody owned it because everybody wanted to play Portal and fucking Half-Life 2 Episode 2 or whatever it was.
Half-Life Episode 2.5 Remix Edition.
No, that's Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. I'm just doing a bit.
Nomura's going to make Half-Life 3. Put that in your 2021 predictions.
Oh my god. That crosses everything off my list, fellas. Let's dive into Mario. There was some Spider-Man drama, and I just don't have the energy to talk about PlayStation anymore. They've burned me this last couple weeks. They've burned me, and I think I just need a break until November 12th or so.
Fair.
Or so, depending on when Target gets my pre-order to me via the mail. So
you did pre-order.
I did get one via Target, and I tried my damnedest to get an Xbox. I was going for that all access Series X, to be honest with you. My TV bit to dust in like March, started being all funky. And so we finally just got a new TV, and we got like a nice OLED, and it's got all the next gen video game features. So I'm just like chomping at the bit.
Get that HDMI 2.1 120 hertz refresh rate.
Hell yeah,
oh my
bro.
God,
we got
boy.
the LG.
Crazy LG. Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's like the only TV that has like all the next gen game specs, and it's gorgeous. So I can't wait to play games on it. So I'm like, let's get the PS5, let's get the Series X. And anyway.
What are you going to play on the PS5?
That's, dude, I know, Chris. This is why I'm saying I got burned by them. If you listened to the last podcast, you would know my heartbreak, okay?
There's your first mistake.
You know what? I fucked up because I replayed Spider-Man just like 2 months ago. And I'm like, damn, if I would have waited knowing there was a remaster. But I'm going to play the remaster anyway, and I'm going to get burnt out on it. But Miles Morales, hell yeah. I told Nick I'm going to become a Souls guy just because I have no other fucking games to play on launch. Like,
hey man, you could play Godfall.
That doesn't look crazy bad. It looks
Greatest
fine.
hits.
It looks like a nice, mediocre, fun launch game.
PlayStation Plus collection. There's a bunch of games that I haven't played. Honestly, it's just not enough for me to buy PS5 at launch. I'll enjoy it when I have it for sure, though.
I'll play God of War finally
if they keep offering it.
Yeah, Nick, my promise to you, and Chris, you just play God of War.
Oh yeah,
you just you beat it, right? No spoilers.
I did.
Okay.
I crushed it.
God, the story was great. The characters were great, and I wish I was into the gameplay enough to keep me going. I've restarted that game twice, and I don't know if it was just a time and place thing for me, but I just found myself getting really fatigued, solving dumb, not difficult puzzles, just tedious shit, and the like semi-open world, but like not really. I was like, just get me to the next thing. Let me just fight a boss and get a cool cutscene with the boy and move on, you know? So anyway, maybe I'll finally play it on PS5. PS5 enhanced, let's go. I'm doing the Trump hands right now, and I don't know why.
Maybe they'll give you a solid 45 frames per second in performance mode on PS5.
Yeah, as opposed to the 24 frames it ran at. Cinematic, okay? It was gorgeous. It ran like Bloodborne.
Blur.
Okay,
I don't know what any of
No.
that means, but I loved that game. I don't know. I mean, maybe the combat's just not your thing, but I thought that it had a nice depth to it. I found that at a certain point, I was like, I have to be utilizing these different combat modes better to be successful, and that made a huge difference. Even if the skill tree was stupid and could have been incorporated into, say, the lore markers in a way that would still keep you from getting moves too early, but would be part of the fucking world. Like, oh, father, this combat technique from Thor or some shit. And then you get the like shield parry for the projectiles instead of just going, I have a kabillion XP. Let me buy some new moves now in a way that's totally out of the world.
Yeah, it was definitely like some UX designers like, well, we made the menus like Destiny. Now what? Oh, well, I guess we have to tack on a really bad skill tree. All right, ship it.
Ship it. With context now and little hindsight.
Otherwise, though, it's a really good Ocarina of Time. It's a good one of those.
Yeah. Ugh. You don't want my hot take on Ocarina of Time, Chris.
Oh, God. Chris, no. Cover your ears.
It's not great.
Yeah. The game isn't, or my hot take?
Well, I mean, none of your takes are great, but Ocarina of Time is not great.
Yeah, it is not a good game.
Anyway.
It is whatever.
Wahoo!
Anyway, we're finally transitioning to the thing. Mario, we all picked up the Mario 3D All-Stars. Nick, we talked about it on the last podcast a little bit, but I made a promise to you, Nick, that I would play Mario Galaxy because every time it gets brought up, you're appalled that I haven't played it. And I think your stance has mellowed because I think at first you were very hot on like, it's like the best Mario game, and you were like appalled that I hadn't played it, but now you're like, it's a very good game.
I never said it was the best Mario game. I've never held that opinion. I've never said that to you once. I've always said that you should play it. You should play it. I think it's a must play, but that doesn't mean that it's the best one. I think it informs a lot of decisions and a lot of people's desires from Mario, and I think that's important.
So let me just get my hot take out of the way here, and then we're gonna dive in. Chris, you've probably played the most of the 3 games in this trilogy between the 3 of the the re-releases, maybe not of the games in total, but my hot take is that I don't think there's, until Odyssey, I don't think there really was a really good 3D Mario game, and that's why 3D Mario games have all been so different, and they haven't really found their footing, because they are all very different and do a lot of weird things and all feel kind of janky, and I kind of understand why now, playing all of these back to back to back. That's not to say I don't enjoy some of them. Galaxy, we'll get into that kind of at the end of this conversation, but I have liked Galaxy. I think it does a lot of really cool shit, and I think a modern Galaxy game would be awesome. But like, it is only reinforced to me that Mario 64 is just a bad game. And if we were talking about this in the group chat, Chris, talking about like what makes a good game in 2020 is not what made a good game in 1996 or whatever.
In your opinion.
This is my podcast, motherfucker. This is your podcast, okay?
Yeah.
Everything on here is a goddamn opinion. I don't need to qualify my fucking opinions.
That's just my way of saying that's not necessarily my opinion. I do not share that stance with you.
I'll just say it. He's wrong. But move on. Go ahead, EJ.
This is why we bring you on, Chris, so we can argue about this. But the conversation about like what makes a good game, and I think it's fair to look at why a game like Mario 64 is like integral to the very fabric of the way we play games today. Like, it was revolutionary, but does that make it good or fun? Does it hold up? Does it need to hold up? And maybe a lot of my stance on these games is reactionary because people talk about it. They fawn over these games, and it's like, oh, if you're playing it for the first time in 2020, it's like, dude, this fucking game sucks. Chris is just masturbating violently into the camera. So, Chris, you spent a lot of time with Mario 64, especially. I'm curious to know how your opinion changed on this. But let's just break these down game by game. Mario 64, is it good?
Yes.
Oh, the dramatic pause.
Here's the thing. The first day that I played it, and I did not play it on the 64. I played the DS remake a little bit when it came out.
Pretty different.
It is, and
very different.
I don't even remember it though, is the thing. And so playing the game the first day, I was like, I could not have liked it any less. I thought that the camera's terrible. The camera is terrible. I thought the camera was terrible. I thought that it handled like, oh man, the controls are terrible. It's floaty. The physics are god awful. The textures are better in this. Yes, I thought they could. Well, maybe floaty's not the right word, but maddeningly imprecise maybe is the word. Like the way that Mario moves. Like I'm used to.
I understand what you're saying. I think it's too precise that it follows your inputs too closely, and you're used to video games now like zhuzhing it and sort of understanding what the player's intending to do and then doing that, where Mario 64 is not smart enough to do that. It's like, oh, you pressed up and to the left slightly, so you're going to move up and to the left and you're going to get mad because you wanted to go up.
When I move the thumbstick the opposite direction I'm facing, I expect him to turn around, not to do a 180-degree loop that sends me up a fucking cliff all the time. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, it does have funny stuff about that.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it all the time, and so I never know if I'm going to, like, fall off. But the second day, I went back, and I was going to play more, and I was like, for a game that I just said I never want to play again, I find myself curiously unable to stop playing it. And a couple different things kind of occurred to me. That, one, it's not a platformer. It's a collectathon. That game has almost no platforming sections. Like, you're
just running around and hitting enemies.
Yeah, there's whole levels where you don't even need to jump, but maybe one or two times. And so I hesitate to call it a 3D platformer. But when it works, it's really remarkable. And I can see, this is what they were discovering this genre could be in 3 dimensions. Like, I think specifically to Dire Docks, the sequence of collecting red coins, which is the only section in that game that I found so far in which I had free control of the camera. I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, this works. It's fun, it's challenging, but also a lot of the time the game is difficult not because it was designed to be difficult, it's difficult because it's not done well. And so is it a bad game? No. It definitely has problems, which you would expect from a game at that point, but like, is it a bad game? No. I will not say that it's a bad game. I do think it's a good game.
Fair.
And it's a product of its time, which means that holding up for a first-time player, maybe not so much.
I will say 2 things here. When I booted this game up, there is a certain charm, and this is just because of our age and the era we grew up in with video games, but there's this charm to the low poly, smudgy textures, even the way the audio is designed, and the soundtrack, and the way it sounds like an N64 game. I don't know how to describe it. I'm sure there's a technical way to describe it, but even on this re-release where it still sounds like it's coming out of my fucking CRT TV, and I got this very warm, like, nostalgic sort of feeling when I booted it up and you're hearing all the sounds for the first time, and I'm like, oh yeah, N64 era, better days, you know. So that was kind of an interesting experience. But I think there are aspects to 3D platformers, collectathons, that are just inherently good about the genre, and some bad things. So like at the end of the day, if you can get over the controls and some of the level design and just say, all right, I'm going to go collect things, like if that's your jam, like fuck yeah. Like I like collecting things. I'm a sucker. I've been playing Mario Galaxy. I'm a sucker for 100% of everything. I want those fucking crowns, bro. I'm chasing crowns. I ain't talking about Fall Guys, all right? I want to fine-tooth comb every part of a level, and I get off to that shit, man. So like I see why something like that's appealing. I don't have the nostalgia for Mario 64, so playing it just feels like an intense chore. I don't like it as much as I'm like, oh, it'd be great to just go collect some coins and some fucking stars. You know, to your point about the controls, I'm gonna play it again tonight with what Nick said in mind about how like the controls are too precise. But I think, Chris, what you're getting at is you don't feel like you have very good control over your character, whether that's because its inputs are so precise that it never does what you want, or because it's, you know, not precise enough. Either way, you feel like you don't have a grasp over your character, and that's obviously a problem when you're, you know, interacting in a 3D environment like that. So I felt that really hard. Just that first section when you go into the castle for the first time, and there are 4 coins split by I can't remember if it was a staircase or just a gap in the wall, but you go upstairs and you jump out over the fence onto the ledge. Bro, just trying to get onto that ledge and to get both coins, I kept falling and having to go up and around and back.
Can we just talk just for a moment how cool that is as a design choice, though? That the first thing you do is you walk into this castle. Well, actually, no. The first thing you do, you load up the game, you can play with Mario's face. And that's just like an introduction to, hey, this is a 3D model. This is Mario who's making these goofy faces, and you can play with it and like stretch him around, and it's making funny noises. You load up a game, you get a letter from Peach. The Lakitu shows up and says, hey, this is how you run around, and you're just dumped into the castle, the courtyard, and there's no music. You just hear birds chirping, and it gives you like the first, like, you can just walk around. You can just go and look in the water. You can try swimming. It kind of sucks because swimming in video games sucks. But eventually you get inside the castle and you see the staircase and you see coins, and you're given the first opportunity to really take into account that perspective matters, and that you have to worry about depth perception, and the camera is locked in that moment, sort of like it sort of hovers behind you. It's sort of stuck in that kind of way. And to both of your points, talking about how the camera sucks, like controlling the camera is not good in this game. And they were working with C buttons instead of dual analog sticks. 3D games have never really given you the ability to control the camera ever. So it was a very novel and new thing. And a lot of the game is designed, I think, to be played as if you do not have control over the camera at all. I noticed that primarily when I was playing Bob on Battlefield, and it was like running past the chain chomp, and I'm trying to, you know, center the camera to be behind Mario because that's what I'm used to. And it would keep defaulting to like switching and like rotating around the corner to give you this 45-degree angle so that you can see the chain chomp where it's pegged down and you're running past it. And that would like mess me up because it was moving the camera out of my control, and that was upsetting me. But it's, from the game design, like that's what they were doing on purpose. And you don't have to like enjoy it, but I think that's sort of beneficial to understand and sort of come at it from that way, and stop trying to control the camera and just sort of like do where the camera's pointing at is sort of like where you're going to be going. Same thing happened when I was trying to cross the bridge, the little teeter-totter bridge, which is like a funny little like non-challenge, but it's can be kind of annoying because you're just going to fall off the side and you're like, oh great, now I have to go back all the way up there. But I don't know. It's just kind of fun to just like run around and explore. And I think also Mario 64 does the most things. Like there's no level where you're not doing something new. It's absurd. Like you get to the what was it? The peak, the mountain one.
Tall
You do a penguin race. You slide down this thing, and then later you challenge a penguin. You do a race down this, like you're just sliding. You're just holding forward and like left and right, and it's just sort of like, hey, check it out. This is what we can do in 3D. Get these coins. Or you're flying around, or you're on this magic carpet ride, or you're shooting cannons off of a ship and trying to like land on this special platform so that you can get the star. Like it was mostly a wildly unfocused game that just happened to have Mario in it.
Well, it's because it's a tech demo for what you could do in a 3D game. They were experimenting, and so it doesn't feel like a very cohesive experience, which again I think lends to the fact that like 3D Mario games have done a lot of really weird and different things, because I don't think they really had a clear vision for what they could do when the entire inception of this, part of the franchise was just to like fuck around with how you make 3D games. And that sort of has become, I guess, like endemic to 3D Mario DNA.
It's definitely a bottom-up design of a video game. Like they figured out what you can do, and then they put it into a context where it was fun to do, as opposed to being like, okay, this is the story, now let's break it down into like the things you can do.
I don't know if I'll be able to get over the controls. Chris, you seem to have gotten pretty far, so do you run through that wall at some point where you're like, the controls don't matter anymore because the game's fun enough? Or is this just to satisfy some morbid curiosity you have?
I think that at a certain point, the controls, I wouldn't say that they clicked, because I don't think that it was like an, oh, I get it now, but I think it...
You just adapt to it?
Yeah, it became more manageable the more time I spent with it. And so I could bulldoze through like all 6 or 7. I didn't do all the 100 coin collection stars, but I could bulldoze through like 6 or 7 stars in like sometimes a half hour in one level, because these are like, some of them are like 45 seconds from start of level to star, and they're all pretty straightforward. Like it was not, I think, intended to be particularly difficult. So I've got like 90 something stars, and I'm up on the top. I'm up on the top floor. I have like 1 star in Rainbow Cruise or whatever it's called, and I haven't really done anything in TikTok Clock. But other than that, I mean, I've done like everything.
TikTok Clock is a trip of a level, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the first time I jumped in, I happened to hit it correctly that nothing was moving. And then the second time I went in...
One of those like weird secrets that they don't tell you.
Yeah, the second time I went in, it was not. And I was like, well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I ran out of patience like 4 stars ago. And so I think that now it's time to be done. But absolutely...
That is a pure platforming level for sure.
That's true.
And also a weird camera control level, because you're in this tube, and as you go up the tube, the camera kind of stays in the center, and you're just like rotating it around, following you.
Yeah, I had a hard time in my one attempt to get 1 star in that level. I had a hard time doing anything. EJ, I'm sorry, did you say before we started this that no 3D Mario had really been successful at what it was doing until Odyssey? Are you going to tell me that was successful?
Well, Odyssey felt the most like a modern video game because it is a modern video game. And I liked Odyssey. There are 12 Mario games I take over any 3D Mario game, unless you count 3D World as a 3D Mario game, which some people do, some people don't. It just feels like the franchise, like I said earlier, has just kind of remained unfocused. Everyone has done something. Sunshine to Galaxy is like, they're not even the same franchise, it's just the same character. And that's like fine as like their spin-off. Like the 2D platformer is their bread and butter. I thought the new Super Mario Bros. Games were fine, but I think it made me realize that like I just don't really like 2D Mario games that much.
The new Super games never really clicked with me very much.
And I know you're a lot more sensitive to like, to me it's like, it's Mario, and you play Mario World and you play new Super Mario Bros. And it's like, yeah, they're different, but at the end of the day, it's Mario and I'm running around doing the same thing. But they feel very different, and you've talked about that before, and I totally understand. Like, it just doesn't, the physics don't necessarily feel so great. That's why I love the 3D World and 3D Land. I beat both those games to completion, and both fucking just great. Like, let's take all the design philosophy of like the good stuff about a 3D Mario game and the good stuff about a 2D Mario game, and somehow married it together just brilliantly. I can't wait for that game to finally come to Switch. But yeah, no, not to say that the games didn't do successful things. It just, playing them, especially in retrospect, looking at these games, it's like, okay, like it all makes sense why the games are the way they are and why they feel so unfocused and kind of janky. Even Mario Galaxy, which is like a recent game, like feels janky. Oh my god, it's 2020. I'm getting old. Feels like the Wii was just fucking yesterday, bro. Anyway, back to your point, Chris, about why I'm wrong.
Yeah, which is my point always. No, we don't have to unpack my general apathy towards Mario Odyssey, but the idea that was the first like really successful 3D Mario platform, I just, now that I have played Sunshine, I cannot agree with it all. And here's my hottest.
Interesting.
Here's my hottest take of the whole pod is that Sunshine is the GOAT. Sunshine is the best 3D Mario game, period. It is extremely well designed. It is genuinely challenging. It's the only time they have ever given me a free floating camera in a 3D Mario game. And because they did that, they can actually push the player to be precise in their platforming, to think creatively. The addition of the FLUDD, which, while I will admit, is a little bit of a safety blanket. Like, you can fudge some jumps, but you still have to know how to use it to fudge those jumps, or it's not going to make a difference.
You fludge them.
You brilliant bastard. That was perfect. And then they give you these challenge sections where they take the FLUDD from you, and they're like, no, now you just have to prove it. Now you really have to just use the jumps. And those sections are hard. They are genuinely very, very challenging. And interestingly, also kind of laid the roots for what they were going to do physics-wise in Galaxy. Like some of these challenge levels with rotating three-dimensional cubes that you don't really slide down for quite a while. Like your feet are pretty sticky in terms of keeping your center of gravity on the cube. And I'm like, holy shit, this is what's going to become Super Mario Galaxy. So Sunshine, I've adored every minute I've spent with it. I've been genuinely challenged. I've loved being in the world. I think the FLUDD control's great. Mario's jumps are great, and they're precise. It's great. I have no bad things to say about it. The levels that I haven't been able to beat yet, it's because I am not playing well enough to beat them, and that's super refreshing.
I haven't played enough Mario Sunshine to know, but I feel like the general consensus about the game, whenever anyone talks about it, it's what I have now redubbed the Death Stranding effect, where everybody's like, yeah, Mario Sunshine, really good game. No, it controlled like shit, and I didn't have fun playing it, but that Mario guy's in it, really good, question mark. Like, everyone's trying to convince themselves they like the game. I like that you have just come out and, like, unabashedly, you're just like, this is how I feel about it, and you're very confident in that. I've never heard a take like that about that game. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, Nick, how much have you played of this game, and do you agree with Chris, or is he just spitting crazy shit right now?
Sunshine, not in this collection, but previously, is a game that I've gotten to the very end but never beaten because I never figured out how to unlock the final boss fight. That's like the only reason why I didn't beat it. I think it's an uneven game. I liked it a lot. I like playing it. I think Chris is spot on when he says that it's probably the hardest 3D Mario game. Not because the challenges are difficult, but because the way they implement the controls, it seems a little bit technically like it does not stand up to what they're going for. And just like knowing the development cycle behind that game, you can see, oh yeah, this is a little bit rushed. Like the blue coin challenges are all kind of asinine. That was kind of stapled on, and it feels like it. And my main sort of gripe that I have with this iteration from what I've played is that when you go into this first person, not really, it's like an over the shoulder kind of, you click the stick in and it allows you to aim freely. That's locked into a uninverted aiming scheme with the left stick, which is like, I want to use the right stick for one, and for two, give me the option to invert it because that's the way I play video games. Doesn't mean, take that however you will. But that's kind of annoying. And then you lose a little bit of the nuance with the way you control FLUDD, because on the GameCube you had analog triggers. So if you did a half press, you could just run around spraying water. But if you did a full press, you'd plant your feet and you'd give you the ability to aim and stuff. So they lost that. So they had to sort of reconfigure that a little bit, which I think ended up working out okay. And it feels decent enough. It's still weird doing that like burst backflip kind of move with the R and jumping.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of really weird like tech in this game. Like you can't do a long jump because there's no crouching, which feels really weird going like back and forth between 64 and Sunshine, which I've been doing. Obviously the Dan Reichert method of playing these games, which is do 3 stars, move on to the next game, get 3 stars, move on to the next game.
Oh, it's
been kind of interesting to sort of give me a way to compare and contrast and sort of never get too used to one game, I like to shake it up a little bit.
I like to never be comfortable or enjoy myself.
Never be comfortable. Never let your guard down.
That's my one rule. Sorry, I wanted to clarify. So in the original game, the controls were inverted, and they have uninverted them and made them normal and good, but you can't reinvert them for all the weirdos out there?
That's what I'm saying. And also they did the same thing with the Mario 64, where originally in Mario 64, you would press left on the left C button, and the camera would move to the left, so it'd be facing to the right. But they fixed it so that it's more conventional.
Good.
Which that is like, it's weird getting used to because I'm so used to playing Mario 64 in other ways, but
yeah,
that's like whatever. That's not a huge deal. But with actually going up and down, that's a huge like blocking point for me personally. And it's still like weird enough that it's on the left stick.
Right. It's so weird to me that they wouldn't have patched in a way for you to just, I mean, how hard is it to invert a goddamn, isn't that like a fucking line of code?
Yeah, it's check a box. I would like to just be able to be like, hey, from the get-go, can I just like keep the y-axis inverted, like, please?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they quote unquote fixed it. Like, I hate inverted controls. I don't understand it. My brain doesn't work.
90% of players that would be, the preferred method of controlling it, but unfortunately, I am the outlier.
Just from an accessibility standpoint, it's like, God, come on, Nintendo. And all the other controversies surrounding this game about people, accusing them of doing these lazy ports, and we come to find out a couple weeks ago that like these aren't even like the original games. These are like being emulated in some instances poorly.
Who said that they're being emulated poorly? Because from my point of view, this is like the definitely the best way that you've been able to play these games before. Like, you're getting Sunshine and Galaxy at 1080p, which is really cool. The textures have been touched up, and like the UI elements have been touched up so that they're actually a little bit they're not going to stick out as being like low res or anything. Like, look at Mario's face in Mario 64 in this collection versus his face from the original N64, and it is a stark contrast.
Right. People were complaining. Well, people find reasons to complain about everything. I agree with you. I think this is the best way to play these games, and it just makes me wish Nintendo would do a proper goddamn eShop. There's no reason not to put every fucking game you've ever goddamn done on the Switch eShop. Let me buy them all.
Sure. Yeah.
Do a service. True. I'll pay you $10 a month if you just put all your games on. Like, I just don't understand it.
This is Nintendo spiting us because the Wii U didn't sell. They're like, you motherfuckers, we gave you all these games. I bought a Wii U! You could have bought these, but only 14 million of you bought a Wii U, so nobody gets it now.
Hey, listen.
Finally, we found success.
The three of us.
Shut up.
The proud few here, all right?
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny, but I will not buy the 3D World remake, even though I think it's arguably the best Mario game ever across either genre, if it is not the best ever, because I loved it so much on the Wii U. I played it to full completion. Actually, that's not true. I did not ever beat World.
The second Special World?
Crown. I did not beat Crown.
Same. Everything else though, every stamp, everything.
I loved that game, but I'm not gonna buy it again because I've already beaten it fully.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna buy it again so that I can play it. I mean, I know it sounds stupid as fuck because I can just get on my Wii U and play it again, right? But
yes.
I want to play it on my Switch. I want to play it in bed, and it's totally irrational. And like on the last podcast, I was like, Nick, I want them to take my money and make buying things more complicated, but it's not rational. But I want to give them my money for a whole new console instead of whatever. I mean, hopefully it's not going to be enhanced. I know it's got a little bit of DLC, but I haven't played the game since 2014.
Yeah, I wonder. It depends on. I mean, all their sort of expansions from the Wii U ports have been a little light. I think it's mostly just been like, hey, you didn't buy it on Wii U, but there's a little bit extra here, so you can get in now, and you're buying it on the Switch, so you can feel better about it. I don't think it's ever been enough to be like, hey, buy it again. That hasn't stopped me from buying some things again, but I'm a victim of my own desires, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I don't know if I'm going to buy this game for $60. I don't know if Bowser's Fury is going to be enough to change it up for me to be like, yo, I need to buy this and play it again. But it does seem like there's been some changes with like the way movement speed is. I think that they sped it up a little bit, which I think was probably my main, not like stumbling block, but like that was like one of my main criticisms from the original game. It was very slow. Like, it was definitely a game that you played with friends, and they designed around that. And that's the way I played. I played it 2 or 3 or 4 player primarily throughout the entire game. Even did like some Champions Road with like me and Austin and some other roommates and stuff at the time. So this game, like, I really like the overall package of 3D World if we're just going from a critical standpoint. But for me, it's more of like a Castle Crashers situation where like beat 'em ups aren't very interesting, but playing that game with 4 players was a huge blast. And I think co-op games in general can get away with a lot being a lot less interesting just because it gives you the opportunity to play a video game with your friends.
We get
And that was the
online
main way
multiplayer.
I played it. Oh, it's going to be god awful trash. I mean, have you played Mario Maker online? It is a slideshow. And you know it's not going to have good netcode. We're talking about Nintendo here.
God damn it.
Don't even bring that up to me.
I want to hope.
God. We played Smash Bros. It's bad. No, it has online. I said it has online.
Did this? Yeah. I just want it to be good. Because if I could play lag free with you, Chris, and or Nick, or both of you, like, you bet your ass y'all are buying that fucking game. But like, if it runs like shit, yeah, because that's the thing, is that game, I remember playing it, God, was it 2014 or 2013?
It was 2014, I think. Well, it might have been 2013 because the console came out in 2012. I think it was 2013. Smash Bros. And Mario Kart were 2014.
Okay.
Right?
Mario Kart was May 14. Yeah. But anyway, I was living back at home for a few months, and like my little brother, who was still in high school at the time, would just come into my room and we would sit up all night, just sitting at the end of the bed, just fucking co-oping 3D World. And yeah, we were chasing every stamp and every star. Was it star or coins? 3D World was or 3D Land was coins, and 3D World was stars, correct? The little green
like the
stars.
green stars, right?
Yeah. Okay. Just loads of fun. The atmosphere of that game, something about the graphics, it's got the subtle bloom, it's just soft and inviting, and the music is just S tier. It just has the fucking greatest fucking vibe. It makes me so, you pop that game on, dude, and you're just like, it is slow. I will give you that. It almost was like, I'm not stressed playing this game.
It's a breath of fresh air.
It's an incredibly easy game until they do the challenge levels. And as far as the music, I liked the music. I didn't love the music. It felt like a sort of reimagining of what if we took New Super Mario Bros. Music and made it better with a lot less of the bwah, bwah, like the really annoying.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate the new Super Mario. It's like cartoon trash falling down a garbage chute. But New Super Mario 3D Mario World was like a lot better.
I loved New Super Mario Bros. On the Wii. That was fucking awesome, and it was a great co-op game. But on the Wii U, the one they put out on the Wii U and subsequently re-released on the Switch, I have tried to play that game so many times, and I don't want to just say, oh, that game fucking sucks, because I couldn't tell you why, but I cannot get out of the first world. I just fucking don't like it. I don't even know why, because I'm like, it's not different than the one on the Wii. It's got some new mechanics with the acorn, or is the acorn?
Yeah. With the squirrel suit.
Yeah.
Flying squirrel.
But I'm like, it's the same thing. Why do I love one and hate the other? I don't understand it. But
I don't either. I played both of them.
Yeah.
I thought they were great.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. Can't explain it.
it's something about the mood. I don't know. I'm disappointed that after all these years, and after 3 years of the Switch, that they are just now porting this, and we're not even getting a sequel. Like, after all these years, y'all haven't designed another one of these games. And I understand that, like, hey, shit, nobody bought this game, so we might as well re-release it now that our console is actually selling. But I just want a proper sequel done as well as 3D World. I feel like, we got a fucking Captain Toad goddamn game. Like, we got all these weird kind of 3D Mario spin-offs, and I'm just like, why?
It's a good game. I like Captain Toad a lot for what it is. Like, it's not trying to do a lot, but what it does, it's just a nice time. It's just chill as hell.
That was development time and resources that, like, nobody asked for Captain Toad or a port of Captain Toad, you know?
Yeah, you look at Mario's vaunted history and you see, oh yeah, they're just putting out Mario games year after year and they're all just bangers, but then they wasted all this time on Captain Toad, and that's the reason why we haven't gotten a Super Mario 3D World 2.
Well, I'm not saying that's necessarily the reason, but, like, I'm asking, why? Why haven't we gotten the sequel to some of these some of these games in the franchise that would do gangbusters? I just don't understand Nintendo.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Milking it, dog.
EJ, whatever you think would make the most sense, do the opposite
is
thing.
Wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Do the opposite thing, and that's what Nintendo's going to do. Like, oh, they have a wildly successful, extremely enjoyable Mario game in Super Mario 3D World. And instead, they're like, we're going to make a spin-off from the shittiest part of that game, which was the isometric Toad sections. Which is not to say it was bad, but, like, it was the lowest point of a really fucking good game. And, like, that's what we're going to put our money into.
Hey, man,
like,
they could have done a standalone game where you're just racing on that bad dinosaur, all right?
Plessy.
You're telling me you'd rather have a Plessy game than a Captain Toad game? Shut the fuck up.
I
You contrarian piece of shit.
every time I hear that fucking whistle, I'm just like, I want to die. I don't. Yeah. And I had forgotten that he came from Galaxy, which we should talk about. Doing your job for you again there, Ej.
Appreciate it.
I came into this collection expecting to be reaffirmed in my belief that Galaxy was the best 3D Mario. I don't feel that way anymore. I look at Galaxy, it is the most beautiful Mario game they've ever made. It is absolutely gorgeous visually. It has
the soundtrack.
Oh, well, that's just it. Like, it has a score, a dead-ass score, and I use soundtrack and score very differently. You know what I mean? Like,
Now, Odyssey doesn't have a score.
no, not really. Like, Mario 64 has a soundtrack. Mario Galaxy has a score. God of War has a score. The Last of Us 2 has a score. You know what I mean? Like, it is music.
Yeah.
Beautiful, evocative, gorgeous music. But it's fucking easy, man. Like, Mario Galaxy is like Training Wheels team all the way. It is so freaking easy. There's almost no platforming whatsoever. The conceit is really, really, really cool. But, like, if you consider platforming, I'm jumping occasionally to go over a hole, then, like, okay, I guess. But playing through, like, the first 2-3 galaxies again, I was like, God damn, I did not remember this being so easy. And I did not feel that way about Sunshine, where they were already showing me really early, even in the first world, there's a bunch of stuff that you don't know how to get to yet. You could right now if you wanted to, but you don't know how to get to yet. That involves like really precise and challenging platforming. So like Galaxy's really, really, really good, but I don't find it to be. I can't say it's the GOAT if it's not that challenging to me, I guess is my.
Did you play Galaxy when it first came out?
Uh-huh.
And then Galaxy 2 you also played when it first came out, I'm guessing?
I think so. I don't remember for sure. I know I played the first one and I loved it when I played it on the Wii as well.
Because for me, I experienced Galaxy 1 and 2 back-to-back summer 2015, 2016. So for me, both those games are one game in my memory. So it's hard for me to like specify what parts I remember from the first and what parts I remember from the second. I don't think I fully 100%ed Galaxy 2. I think I stopped doing Luigi stuff like halfway through, like doing the Trickster stars and stuff like that. But from what I remember and from like the very little I've played from this collection, Galaxy does have a very slow ramp up, and it is very easy. I would say it gets harder faster than 3D World does. But it is definitely Training Wheels, especially since the way they like. I don't really love the small planet levels of Galaxy. I much prefer the. I guess that was Galaxy 2, like the fire ice world where you're doing you're skating around and then you have to freeze the lava and make the little platforms. But I much prefer traditional moving around doing stuff Mario as opposed to which way is my stick oriented now. This is basically a top-down Mario game.
Same.
That I have to look at this bad perspective, and
Same.
I'm doing this spin to punch these stupid Goombas and then kick them. Like, I don't like doing that as Mario. I hated punching as Mario in Mario 64.
Yeah, the spin doesn't travel you. The camera's butt, like which was by design, very intentionally in this game, that you have no.
Of course, you didn't have a right stick at all.
Yeah, you have no control over the camera because of the way that the game's designed, which is a choice, and they did it consistently at least, which is different than 64.
And they gave you a little bit of camera control in certain levels, like the second planet where you're doing the bee stuff. I think they give you camera control
A little
in that
bit.
first
I
little
just ended up
opening
doing
area.
circles a lot of the time, just like you
Yeah.
said, where I'm like, well,
Sure.
I know, but I pushed up, but because I was facing that way, up means this way. I'm like,
Yeah.
Like, I think the level and world design is awesome. Like the way they do I mean, there's so many different ways that they get you to interact with how gravity works and how the perspective works when you're going around this like fucking King Kai ass planet. And that's really cool, but the controls can get really frustrating. Not only just like you guys are saying, when you end up upside down and the camera gets weird and you try to hit that left trigger or that left bumper to like kind of reorient yourself and it doesn't really work. Sometimes it works really well and sometimes it's just that's all you're fighting the whole time, doing something that should be really easy, and you end up flying into a pit or running into an enemy because you think you're going down left but really you're going up and you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's definitely an easier game, and that's fine. It's Mario. Like, I I don't think Mario should be challenging. It's a game for 7-year-olds. So like by the end of Super Mario World, I just want to kill myself because it's fucking difficult. And I'm not good at platformers the way that I know Nick you are, and I'm assuming you are, Chris. But I don't need something super difficult. I want a manageable list of collectibles. I want some interesting level design. I want a couple of like the boss fights so far in Galaxy have been fun and easy. They are not difficult. They are not a huge part of the game. They're just like that first boss. And you're trying to figure out like, okay, he's shooting at me. Do I need to like get those bullet bills to hit him? What do I got to do? And you're kind of just exploring, and you realize, oh, I can walk up this thing. And now you're like Shadow of Colossusing this fucking big gear boy. And like, it's not world shattering. It's Mario, but it's cute and it's fun. It's a gorgeous game. The way they, like I said, they play with the gravity and they play with the perspective on these planets is like more interesting than it is frustrating. And I think that if they were to do something in the current year, I think there's a way you can fix some of those problems. Let's also get rid of motion controls completely. I think the motion controls work better with a Joy-Con than a goddamn Wiimote pointed at your CRT, and that's been kind of cool, and I think that's an interesting option for that developers are not taking advantage of. But yeah, motion controls are just bad in general. Like, good motion controls are still bad, right? Right, Nick?
Hey, at least in this one, you can press a button to do that spin, because in the original, you just had to waggle the remote to do that.
I would not have been able to play that game. And let me just say here, and let you guys lambaste me for being a bad gamer, but when I got to the fucking surfing section, where you have to like hold the Joy-Con fucking all the way out and at just a slight angle, and you're just twisting your fucking wrist like this, but like, here isn't enough to go left. You gotta like fucking torque it until your elbow's bent weirdly. Fucking awful. Fucking worst moment I've ever had in a video game, where I'm like I'm tapping B, because if I go full speed, I just fucking can't control quick enough. Like the lag between when I'm trying to rotate and when my guy turns, I just kept flying off the fucking edge. So now I'm just tapping B to try and stay on the waves. And the way the water physics go, you're just fucking you're wave dashing, but not in a cool way.
It bounces you.
Well,
and I'm just like this. Not if I'm what, Chris?
If you don't suck at it and you hold B down, you cut through the waves. You don't get bounced by the waves if you're holding B down. Like, dude,
I was trying to hold B down.
I was
getting bounced, and you would land, and you'd have to try and like correct right when you land, but your whole arm's twisting, and you're like, next thing you do, oh my god!
I literally just had my controller at my side and just that much. Just this much, just a teeny little bit.
You fucking asshole.
It didn't hardly
I suck,
anything.
Apparently.
I know. Well, apparently so. Like, I really wish I could just give you the benefit of the doubt and go, oh, yeah, that was kind of frustrating. But it fucking was not. It was so easy
awful
for me. I was like, I did not have the experience that you had.
I can't, like, when I played it, I was so fucking frustrated. I couldn't believe this was, like, approved and put in the game. And I'm also thinking back to, like, how awful the original Wiimote was. I'm like, there is no way that anybody designed this and then QA tested this and said, yep, this is okay to put into a children's video game. And maybe I'm just being an old fucking man, but like, especially with that original Wiimote, there is no way. Because you had to be so accurate on those movements. And, you know, it like, you fucking overturn too much and you're shooting off the fucking edge. And the range where it like actually wants to move your character is so small. So if you were not at the exact right angle, it's just, it was fucking awful. And you guys hate me for it.
I haven't gotten to this part yet with the Switch version, but and I haven't played with the Joy-Cons yet. I've been doing only the Pro Controller because my left Joy-Con was completely dead, because I've swapped over to the Joy-Con that docks directly into the Switch because I had really bad Joy-Con drift, so I had to bust out an old pair of it's just a whole thing.
Can I send you Joy-Cons yet? I have so many Joy-Cons.
No, don't give me your fucking Joy-Cons.
Get some fucking Joy-Cons.
I don't want your busted-ass Joy-Cons. I'm not going to spend $80 on Joy-Cons.
Do you have the yellow ones?
I don't have yellow, no.
God damn it.
I don't.
I have pink and I have some reshelled white ones, but the white ones, the right Joy-Con is all sticky because someone spilled beer on it, and then the left one is fine, so I'm going to try that one as far as just doing a white and pink. That's what I'm doing, and they're charging right now. I'm gonna try playing some more later, and I'll try the Joy-Cons. I think I just unlocked that level. I remember playing it with the Wii Motion Plus, which did have gyroscope in it, and an accelerometer, and it was much more accurate as far as the Wiimote technology goes. It was not just an IR blaster that was judging how your controller was oriented based on the lights that were spraying out of it.
Duck Hunt Like the technology between the fucking NES light guns and the goddamn Wii, it was the same
But
fucking
I will
shit.
say I did not have any trouble with just the standard finish the race challenge. But once there was a trickster star on it, where you actually, or was it a speed run star? I can't remember what it was called, but you have to finish it in a certain amount of time. And that one took several tries to get the time down. But it was not nearly as bad as the ball rolling one, which was much more difficult trying to get that time down because, oh boy, it is very sensitive and you will have trouble and you will fall off and you will lose that time.
I can't wait to get angry about it and text you and have Chris say, "You're just an idiot, dude."
And I think Galaxy actually, like Galaxy is a very easy game, but it has a lot more instant deaths than I think a lot of other Mario games do, which is a little bit annoying. The load times aren't super great. I mean, it's not like, oh no, I'm running out of lives and it's like a huge hassle, but like, it's just kind of annoying. You try to long jump, the gravity will be weird, then you fall in a black hole and you're dead, and you're like, oh, well, shit.
Right. Yeah, I've fallen off a lot thinking I'm going one direction, but because of my perspective is slightly off, I end up just launching myself off.
And Galaxy is even like a slower game, I think, than like your movement speed is a lot lower than 64 Sunshine. So it's a lot more forgiving. And then doing that little spin will like arrest your momentum and will give you a little bit of a vertical boost. So that can be used to sort of like, oh, correct yourself and double back. But I don't know. It's Galaxy is interesting. I think it gets a lot more praise than I think it might deserve. I think it's a really good game. I think it's a really interesting sort of take on Mario and actually giving it a story, which is bad, but is like still, they tried, you know, like Congration, you tried, but the music is just phenomenal. There's a lot of different things you can do, which I think is what makes a Mario game a good Mario game, is giving you a lot of things to do. And talking about like being like focused and Mario games not having a lot of focus, I don't think Mario games in 3D especially are supposed to have a focus. I think it's supposed to be, let's do as many interesting things as we can, do a little bit of it and move on. And I think that's what keeps the interest there, is because hard 3D platformer is not a good game. Nobody wants to play that.
I want to play that.
What's your favorite hard 3D platformer?
Oh,
that's
3D
why
platformer.
That's why I like Sunshine. Is because it is hard. I like being challenged. I feel like I accomplish something when I get a shine sprite in Mario Sunshine in a way I don't feel in 64 or in Galaxy or in Odyssey, frankly. Like 999 power moons, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what a joke. They were so unnecessary and so oblique in some of their descriptions that I was just like, I don't want to puzzle through the way to get my 584th power moon. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, they're so clear in 64 and Sunshine. And I mean, 64, it's like really fucking beat you over the head obvious. And in Sunshine, it's like, here's what you have to do. Like, good fucking luck.
I agree. I think there's a couple of things about Odyssey that were maybe a little arcane, and like, I want my collectathons to be more manageable. But I think Odyssey was the most focused Mario game, and the level design was outstanding, in giving you the agency to explore these worlds.
And the fucking puzzle box rooms, where Sunshine had like 3 weird ones maybe per level, you got like 5 or 6 in a Mario Odyssey world, and I thought those were all really, really great. I do agree that the power moons were too many and the reward systems, it wore off, so I think that wasn't like properly tuned. But if you think about it as like, how many fucking Korok seeds did you get, Chris? Like, you can't talk about there being too many power moons.
Okay, except...
You're right, you didn't get a pile of shit from Mario Odyssey for getting them all.
That's right. No, the Korok seeds, it was like, it was discovery, it was what's around the next corner. You know, that was the whole thing with Breath of the Wild, right? Is this just massive world with things tucked into all these nooks and crannies. And you don't have to do that. And so I think that's part of it too, right? Like in Mario Odyssey, you have to go collect some fucking power moons. That's the whole point.
You don't have to get all 999 of them, though.
Well,
half of those you can just buy.
Right, I know, which is so stupid. But I mean, I didn't even play the lunar levels, the challenge levels, because I was just like, I don't care. Like, I just was so apathetic. Some of the worlds were cool in Odyssey, but some of them, like the fucking food world, everything was just like blocky, ugly, unfinished looking polygons with like a glowworm puke.
Dude, that level was tight. I like that level a lot.
You've said that, and I do not comprehend that 1%. I remember playing that and just going, they clearly ran out of time and were like, I guess this is what this looks like. Go ahead.
For one, I don't know if it's just the Italian blood in me, but the music was phenomenal. I thought it was much more interesting as like a lava world as opposed to just being, it's in a volcano or something and everything's red. Instead, it's like, oh, we're in a food world, and this is like this weird pink goop is everywhere. The capture's really, really interesting. I really liked traversing using the forks. I thought that was just a fun sort of. I like pulling a stick back and releasing it to go to center and having something happen. That's a lot of fun. And then the lava bubble was a good capture too, because you're just like shooting up in the air. It's like the frog, but you can swim around. So that made traversal really interesting. And then the low poly thing is just, I think that's a cool stylistic choice. It didn't seem cheap to me. It seemed like everything had like a really shiny and like crystalline kind of texture, and that was visually interesting to me. And then the boss fight is actually like one of the better boss fights where you're fighting that bird that's vomiting on you, and yet you became meat to get this bird to attack. And then you fought it in a bowl of soup. Like, that was just funny. I like that.
That's fair. That's all super duper fair. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about that.
But that's just my opinion, yo.
For sure. No, that's a really noble take, actually. You've moved me like from complete unenjoyment up to like 5 or 10%, which is, I would say, a pretty substantial move for someone who's as fucking stubborn as I am. Yeah,
I did it.
Something about Odyssey just did not do it for me, and everybody was crowing about this. Oh, it's game of the year. Oh, it's the new pinnacle of Mario, and I'm like, this is like an 8.5 for me, which is still very good, but like I would not have even had it in a conversation for game of the year.
I don't remember what came out that year, but Mario
and Horizon, Zelda.
Oh, that was all the same year.
Yeah, that was 2017.
Horizon was game of the year.
Wolfenstein.
Yeah, Horizon all day, baby. All day.
Assassin's Creed Origin.
Hey, before we wrap up, I do want to back to Zelda real quick.
Oh no!
I mean, just because every time it gets brought up, I feel like I liked Zelda. I liked the sort of ambiance of the world. I have this weird nostalgia for this game that I have no desire to play again because it had way more frustrating elements to me than the one cool thing, which was the stamina system and the way you traversed. But like, my main beef with the entire game, and it's such a through line into everything they do, almost everything they do, whether it's the Korok seeds or just a slew of meaningless outfits that don't. A lot of them did provide something, but tangible. You're like, I want this power, and that's cool. But a lot of them, it's there just to say you have more collectibles in your open world game. But things like, so the Korok seeds and the weapon system, all the side quests were fucking pointless because I felt like there was no incentive to do anything in this game. Zelda was so close. Just take that plunge and dive over the edge and do more RPG-like things. Make the side, give it Mario, give Link a level. Like, give him a level. Give him a fucking, we don't need a full-fledged skill tree and, combat tricks, give
Kratos a level.
Well, I'm just saying, I like how they did the combat in the game, but the weapon system was awful. And I'm like, incentivize us to actually find these things in the world. Make these side quests meaningful in some way, whether it's we get some experience that translates, into something, or even if it's just weapons. Instead of the breakable weapons, make the side quest pay off into something other than 200 rupees. I felt like everything you did in that game, once you were over the atmosphere, after I beat Ganon, which I didn't even do the rest of the shit in the game, I beat Ganon, I never went back. I was like, well, I did the only thing that really matters in that game, I guess. Maybe that's silly, but I just feel like everything I did was so pointless and fruitless, and I wanted some more meaning there. I don't know, that's just my fucking...
The side quests, at least the ones that were part of one of the major areas, I mean, they did move towards something. All of them, in order to do the last side quest or whatever in each specific area, you had to do the other things. I remember when we were playing it, everybody, at least I think everybody in our chat was convinced, oh, you can't get the lightning helmet. You can't get the helmet from the Gerudo Desert. It's not possible. Except it is. If you do all the side quests, they let you take it and keep it and use it as much as you want. And for some of the areas that had heavy amounts of lightning, some of the boss fights, that is difficulty curve shattering, but you have to find all those little things and all those little threads and pull on them a little bit.
They message that to the player at any point. I had no idea. If you need a guide to get everything out of a game, the game's doing something wrong. I also don't need it spelled out, but I played that game for 40 hours and I was just oh yay, another thing I have to do that I'm going to get 200 rupees for.
I mean, if it was spelled out, that wouldn't have been like you wouldn't have done it anyway.
Right,
Maybe
exactly.
This kind of game is like very much an exploratory sort of thing. I think it would have been a better game without side quests. Like maybe to stick to the ones that gave you a tangible reward, like you're saying. Like I don't need rupees. I can get rupees. I can just go mining if I want to get rupees. But I liked the side quest that led to you getting the champion weapons, like the spear from the bottom of Zora's domain, like inside the lake. I thought that was like a really cool series of things that you're doing for people, and they're like, oh, I heard about this thing, and then eventually you go down there and you use your magnesis and you can see it like hanging out down there, and it was like just a really cool bit of discovery. Or even getting like the Sora, like the swimming outfit, so that you can go up fucking waterfalls and you can swim without using as much stamina. Those are really cool. But yeah, I get what you mean, that it's like it's a huge game and you can do so much, but I think the game doesn't want you to do everything. I think that's mostly for psycho people like Chris, who wants to get all 900 Korok seeds, but you can get plenty of your storage slots expanded by just doing like 200, 300. I think I stopped at like 250 or 300, and I had plenty of shields. I had so many bows. I had so many, melee weapons. I didn't need any more. And even throughout the game, I never felt like I was like running out of weapons. Like if I had a really tough encounter fighting a Lionel, then I'd be using up all my weapons, and then I'd get by on the skin of my teeth if I succeeded. And if I failed, then I'd just be like, oh, I'm just not going to fight this thing. It's going to reset me to where I was, and I'm just going to go somewhere else, or I'll sneak around. And then I'll mark it on my map and go back to it later and see if I really want that bow that can shoot 3 arrows at the same time and makes you super powerful and just a badass.
Everything in that game that didn't work for me all ties back to the weapon system. And like, I know you can argue why they went that route and why maybe it was even a good choice. I'm going to vehemently disagree with you.
It only sucks if you're a Skyrim hoarder.
I just think everything about that game that was frustrating for people could have been fixed if they would have just said, all right, your weapons don't break. That now we can have better enemy diversity. Like the Korok Siege was like, yeah, I want to expand my storage and shit, but like, so I can carry 19 of the same spear because they keep fucking breaking every time I run into a moblin. Like that's just I don't. That's a system I don't want to manage. It's distracting me from all the good things about the game. That is not. It's not fun to manage that. It's tedious and frustrating. All the other systems are tied into supporting that mechanic. I desperately hope Breath of the Wild 2 goes away from that. I feel like it'd be really easy to go away from that without breaking anything in the game.
I want weapons to still be breakable, but I want you to be able to fix them. Like there's already a crafting system, just let you fix them.
It's so annoying. I don't want to fix my weapons. I just want to go fight shit and explore, man. I don't want to have to be managing
of time, you dumb bitch.
My fucking God damn it.
Just wait for March and April when they give you a couple of different Zelda collections for Zelda's 35th. Like, why do you think they're stopping why do you think the exclusive sale window for Mario 35th ends when it does? It's because Zelda's 35th anniversary is coming up. There's going to be a 3D Zelda collection. We're going to get a Skyward Sword HD. There's going to be a 2D Zelda collection. Like, just fucking wait. There's my second prediction. You can mock me on later if I'm wrong, but we're getting a ton of Zelda crap in the spring.
If this were any other company, I wouldn't mock you.
Look at AJ's floppy mic.
Yeah, if this were any other company, I wouldn't mock you. But Nintendo doing the one thing everyone wants them to do, doubt.
Why have Mario be a timed release though, and why have it end then? God, you know what? As soon as I said it out loud though, I immediately recognized that it made way too much sense. I want to rescind that take. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it makes way too much sense. Well, this is why they did it. They haven't had any goddamn games since like this fiscal year. Wasn't Animal Crossing Q4 of the last fiscal year?
It came out after March. Well, was it March? Oh my God.
Yeah,
it was March.
So they've had nothing this year, and so this ends right at the end of this fiscal year for them. They're just trying to do something to try and drive as much traffic as possible.
You're right. They just want to have less games for next fiscal year. Literally.
They're literally just trying to limp into that fucking, reportings meeting at the end of March to make their CEOs happy. Despite selling a crap ton of Switches this year.
And of Mario 3D All-Stars.
That's why it ends then. Like, it'll be available again later in the future, but they're just trying to incentivize people to go now.
Did the same thing with the Wii.
We're going to get a Metroid game. That's going to be their release offering. And I'm going to be ecstatic. And everybody's going to be like, see, they got no games this year.
It'll be a port of Samus Returns.
Oh, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
And Chris will buy it again like a schmuck. It'll be $60.
Samus Returns was a great fucking game. Like,
I'm sure
I'd buy it again for $60.
Yeah.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
I won't be happy about it, but who cares? Why, they don't care if I'm not happy about it as long as I buy it anyway.
Chris, you're literally the cartoon of the girl saying, "Okay, time to buy Metroid again, sweetie," and you're just being like sad and saying, "Yes, dear."
I'll take any re-release they can give us. If they release a fucking Metroid game on the Switch where I could play with a real goddamn controller, I'd be ecstatic about that. The only thing keeping me from playing Metroid Samus Returns is fuck the 3DS, bro. Fuck it. You played games on the 3DS in spite of it because you had no other option.
I don't agree. I know that you guys hate the circle pad, but I mean, I have Sasquatch hands, so it works well for me. Like
oh man,
especially
you're not the only one, bro.
Well,
look at these banana hands.
We've already covered. You're just bad at game.
Are there any motion controls in Samus Returns that we could force in?
Listen, I have very sweaty digits, so the circle pad was not ideal for me.
I've touched your hand. It's like holding a package of salami. It's awful.
It's horrible. It horrifies me, Nick. I have to live with this.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
Poor Sarah.
Sorry for the Zelda rant. Give me Wind Waker HD, please. Just give me...
Yeah, what's in the 3D Zelda collection? Are you just going to get Ocarina of Time? Do you think they would do 4? You think they would just do the 2 GameCube and 2 64 games? And then do Skyward Sword HD?
I think it'll probably be Wind Waker TP and Skyward Sword. That would be my guess.
But when they do Skyward Sword HD, I thought that was the prevailing sort of rumor/desire.
Then yes, the 64 and the GameCube.
Or would Skyward Sword HD just be, hey, check it out, it's 1080p, we fixed the textures a little bit, and now you can do motion controls like Galaxy style with the Joy-Cons.
Would they put out a 3D compilation when they have proven time and time again that they can just put out a half-ass remake like Twilight Princess and people are going to buy it at retail price? Like they're not going to put out a collection like Mario.
They could have done that with Mario too, though. Especially with Sunshine and Galaxy, where it's mostly just like, hey, let's up-res it and give it some more bloom. And, it's Wind Waker HD, dog.
No, Wind Waker HD was a complete ground-up fucking remake, dude. Look at comparisons of that.
It's the same game, but with more bloom. That's it. They shortened a little bit of the awful fetch quest at the end of the game with the Triforce pieces.
Yeah, maybe it looks the same, but it's literally everything in the game's a new asset. It is ground up.
That's fine. That game had 6 assets. It was cel-shaded, dog.
Wind Waker was good. I played it
was good.
Fairly recently, like the original on GameCube. I think I played it for the first time like within 5 years ago. And like it was good. I'm definitely a 2D Zelda guy. I will say that. I grew up playing the Oracle games, Link's Awakening. Like playing the Link's Awakening remake was absolutely joyful. I loved revisiting that game.
Sincerely hope they do an Oracle collection with the same style.
Please.
Take me back to Labrinia. Take me to Holodrome, dude.
I think a Link to the Past remake's probably more likely.
Potentially. I wonder if they would even do the same art style because Awakening was very dreamlike for a good reason. And I think the Oracle games they're not canon, I don't think. I think they could easily be spun into a strange alternate dream world reality where that art style would still fit. And also being, Game Boy games.
Nothing in Zelda is canon.
Fun fact, I mean, the current guy who's the producer, like the director, one of the guys in charge of Breath of the Wild and has been in charge of Zelda since Skyward Sword, worked at Capcom and worked on the Oracle games and on Minish Cap before he was transitioned into Nintendo first party and is now head of Zelda. So, I don't know, possibility there. Just like Koizumi worked on Link's Awakening.
All I want, I know this isn't Nintendo, but all I want right now is Pokemon Let's Go 2. That's all I want. Nothing else I need for the Switch right now.
Let's go Togepi, let's go Meryl.
Last aside here. I have been playing a ROM hack called Pokemon Prism.
Familiar with it, I've heard of it.
Yeah, really good for a ROM hack so far.
Was that a ROM hack of Fire Red Leaf Green?
No, of Crystal, or Gold Silver, I guess. Yeah, a lot of really interesting things so far, like sections where play as a Pokemon, which sounds dumb, but like worked within context. Yeah, it's like these little sections so far, but it works. But it's not quite scratching the itch that Pokemon Let's Go completely changed the game for me. They got rid of all the bad things about Pokemon and created a whole new subset of systems that were just fucking addicting. And completing the Pokedex was an absolute blast. Shiny hunting was fucking great. Now just give me Johto and a surprise visit to Kanto all over again.
Surprise!
Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a third Sword and Shield DLC that you don't want.
Fuck off.
That takes you to an extremely limited subset of Kalos that is a paltry callback to Gold and Silver when you get a full experience in Kanto. That's what you're going to get, and they're going to bill it as a big return to the Kalos region, which is geographically, we would think, adjacent because Britain and France, and that's what you're going to get. That is what you're going to get, because that makes no sense, and so that's the thing that's going to happen.
Is Kalos XY?
Yeah.
Lumiose? Yeah, okay.
Nintendo, always breaking our hearts.
Pokemon Snaps 2.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Happening?
Oh, fuck.
You forgot that's real. I think it's probably going to come out in the next 6. It'll probably come out March-ish.
March-ish.
That feels right.
Strong commitment. That was not a fever dream, Chris. That was real.
It happened. It real. Also, the Dota, the League of Legends Pokemon game.
Well, because people want this game, it's going to be fucking trash. So I am fully expecting that.
Sure, it'll be okay.
We're still going to buy it. That's all I care about.
I've speculated, I've postulated,
pontificated
that if Sony owned all of Nintendo's IP, how much more successful Nintendo would be.
Well, Nintendo wouldn't be very successful because Sony would own all their IP.
Not going to dignify your bit. Yes. Celebration.
It's a valid point. It's a valid
Chris is trying to poke holes in it because I said it, but
I am.
You know I'm right. I'm right.
I'm trying so hard. I'm like, no, what's Sony fucked up? No, we'd get a Mario game where Mario gets hit in the head with Peach's golf club in the beginning of the first act, and Luigi goes on this misguided revenge tour, like killing all Peach's friends and all the Toads, and and then he's like, no, I shouldn't kill you.
The Luigi of golf of us.
Wow.
In this hypothetical, EJ, can we just totally dive into this for a second?
Okay.
For no valid reason. When does Sony get these IP?
Oh my goodness, we're really doing this.
Sure. Fuck it.
This is an alternate timeline where the Switch completely failed in 2017.
Okay, so recently then.
Yeah.
So Nintendo, on their hands and knees, were like, please, we need to stay in video game business. Will you acquire us? So does that mean Sony also gets their studio talent, gets their developers?
Presumably.
So it's still Nintendo developing these games. All the producers and directors are still in charge. I don't think any of the games would change. I don't think Sony's that hands-on. I think they would sell better because they'd be on PS4, and PS4 has 110 million copies out there. But I don't know. Breath of the Wild might be 60 FPS, but it would still look as good as it does. Nothing would be different. They would just look better.
No, I'm saying just from a marketing standpoint, from a meeting the demands of the consumers. Like, the games would continue to be as good as they are. They would look better. But just all the dumb shit Nintendo does wouldn't happen. And consumers would be getting way more of the things they actually want. Nintendo's just a bunch of old-ass Japanese dudes who are still running the company like it's 1984. And video games, haven't existed for very long. And it's like, dude,
sure.
The entire industry has raced past you.
And the games are still arguably more enjoyable than most of what Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah, I think as long as Sony kept the people in charge of like a lot of the decision making as far as game development goes, I think the games would still be the same. I think you're right though. I think there would still be more. I think they would be a little bit more gung ho with just like shilling out old stuff. I think Nintendo's way more protective of that than they need to be. But I don't know like necessarily if that's to their benefit to be like very closed off and having the Nintendo Vault and be like, okay, you cannot get these things, and that makes people want them more. I don't know what the balancing act for that is. I think Nintendo's just a very conservative company in that way. But if Sony owned Nintendo, there would be a Earthbound on Switch right now. There'd be another 3 port on Switch right now. You'd be able to play all 3 Donkey Kongs. They would have pop that out immediately.
I don't know though.
But I don't know if that would have necessarily been better for their bottom line, or if people would receive them better, or I don't know.
I mean, I think we would have more sequels. Like, EJ, you would have Super Mario 3D World 2, for sure. If it is successful,
it'd be goddamn good.
It would. If it's on a Sony console and it's successful, it's going to have a fucking sequel. Like, that is almost a foregone conclusion. Even The Last of Us, a game that did not need a sequel, still got a sequel. However,
it was great.
It was, yeah. And what we see with Sony and their back catalog, they're no fucking better than Nintendo. Like, the fucking PlayStation Mini had shite offerings as far as
that's different.
Sony didn't have good first-party games in that, so they hit up Ubisoft and was like, please, can we get something like you can get Rayman and Rainbow Six, two games nobody wants.
Yep. The PlayStation library, other than Nintendo, well, maybe even arguably is comparable to Nintendo in its greatness of games that have been on all four of their consoles. But they do so very little with it. Even Microsoft is outpacing them in terms of dipping into the back catalog and making them accessible. I don't know that they would be any better at Nintendo at getting into the back catalog.
The PS3, every Sony game ever was remastered and put out onto a trilogy collection on the PS3. Every good game on the PS2 was packaged and sold physically, and they were all well done, upscaled ports of PS2 games, and they were just like, here you go, buy this for $29.99.
But you can't play it now.
They didn't do that for PS4.
Yeah, you can't play those now. I can't go back and replay the God of War series because I don't have a PS3 anymore. You know what I mean?
You can stream them over PS Now.
PS Now, baby. It's the future. It's now.
On PS4, I could stream PS3 shit?
They've got PS Now. It's a subscription service where you do like basically Stadia or Luna or xCloud or, all those things. Except nobody wants it because it's just old games. I mean, you can download locally the PS4 games they have on there too, but
Chris is like, oh no.
It's a choice. It's an option. They didn't tell you about it. We had to tell you about it on a podcast.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's the Console Crusade. For all your gaming news, like PS Now, you can find us on Twitter at console_crusade. Anyway. Chris, thanks for joining us. This was a much less contentious podcast than I anticipated it being, so disappointed in you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Join the club.
I'm going to get you a mic soon so that when we do this, we'll get you sounding nice and crispy, like Nick and I.
Start working on your voiceover tapes, your auditions.
Yeah, right. I talked to Chris, Nick, about doing some video game retrospectives, which I know you and I had briefly chatted about, but wasn't sure how interested you were in those, but we're talking about it again. If you want to do it, like Chris...
Doing like a book club kind of thing?
Yeah, like, hey, let's play this game this month, and let's fucking chat about it. And that seems like a fun thing to do. I'm still stuck at home amidst the COVID-19. You're living by yourself now, going to school, Chris. Give me a reason to come out of my cave every once in a while and do something with real people.
May I offer, as a first suggestion, in the vein of retrospectives and things that will undoubtedly get us trying to kill each other through the computer screen, Donkey Kong Country 1 versus 2.
I was literally just going to say DKC2, just hit Switch Online. So
let's replay 1 and 2, and let's have that conversation.
Great minds and broken clocks are right once a day.
There we go. Oh, there we go. Let's do it. Oh. I'm going to play this on OG hardware here, boys.
I lost. That was the one console that I did not retain in my divorce.
That sucks, dude.
It does.
SNES is a goat.
I did get to keep all my JRPGs, though. So I still have Mario RPG. I still have Earthbound. I still have Final Fantasy 3. But all
Mega Man X isn't an expensive game, so that's not too bad.
Well, I never owned that. My Nana owns it.
What?
My Nana owned it. So I played it on her Super Nintendo. And so, well, she still owns it.
That bitch. Oh my
but
God.
she has agreed.
Didn't give you her games?
Well, I'm in the will now that she is going to give me her Super Nintendo when she passes, so that my kids can play the Super Nintendo that I grew up on.
Wait, how old is Nana? And is she playing the fucking Super Nintendo?
She's 82. No.
Just want to liquidate her assets, okay? Jeez, dude.
But it stays there. My mom still plays it sometimes. She'll go boot up Donkey Kong and play some Donkey Kong.
I had very not tech savvy grandparents. There were no video games at Grandma's house.
Oh, every time I visit, I play through Mega Man X. I'll drop an hour and 5 minutes and just smash through 100%.
An hour and 4 minutes and 37 seconds. That's my PR. Okay. No, I've never played Mega Man X to completion.
Oh, you
I haven't
should.
played a lot of things to completion because I'm bad. I'm bad at video games.
It's a better game when you can map the dash to R.
Yes.
Yeah,
Playing Mega Man X4 on the collection on the Switch was freaking chef's kiss, bro. It was just wonderful. What a hard
I love the
game.
voice acting and all the scenes. Oh,
Yeah.
what a great game.
We've talked about this in the pod, I feel like. That's the
Yes,
first time
we
I ever
have.
heard the word colonel or read the word colonel. I didn't,
Colonel.
Colonel. I had no clue. I was at my neighbor's house. I must have been, I don't know, 5, 6.
That was
Anyway.
also the first time that you learned why we were fighting for.
Oh, man. All right. Chris, thanks for joining us. Console Crusade. Nick, ciao.
Arrivederci.